Danny Koker has violated his code of loyalty after years of silence. The Count's Customs owner has begun naming names in recent interviews and behind-the-scenes revelations, naming the 5 employees that nearly ruined everything he built. These aren't only accounts of former cast members, warning stories on trust, treachery, and the consequences of letting the wrong people in on your life's work. Danny had a zero-tolerance policy about employees talking about other colleagues for more than 10 years. He protected their identities regardless of the outcome. However, a shift occurred. Perhaps time had a role. Perhaps it was more of a curiosity to see how his remaining crew fared after some of these departures. Danny Koker is prepared to reveal the truth on the 5 individuals that drove his patients to their breaking point for whatever reason, to the point that their deeds have lasting effects on the traditions of the Count. We must comprehend the man who employed them before delving into the names that Danny hopes he could erase from his memory. Danny Koker did not achieve success by chance. Carefully he constructed it. He learned that vehicles were more than just machinery from his father during his formative years spent playing in Detroit garages. Your essence was embodied in them. While Danny was a child, she lived through the Motor City's golden age, so she learned a lot more than just mechanics. He was gained an appreciation for quality work, the significance of one's reputation, and most importantly, the strength of one's loyalty. Danny Koker Sr. was a well-known gospel musician, and he was his son's father. On the other hand, he was a man who saw that the key to success was assembling a team of people who had the same beliefs as you. All of Danny's subsequent work reflects those formative experiences. In Las Vegas, he launched Count's Customs with more than simply a business plan. Making a family was the main focus. Persons who he employed corresponded with his enthusiasm for detail, admiration for vintage American car culture, and conviction that each undertaking necessitated undivided attention. Almost by mistake, he went from being a local garage owner to a TV personality. The many times Danny has appeared on Pawn Stars as an expert on cars and motorcycles attracted the interest of executives at the History Channel who saw potential in his genuine passion and extensive expertise. Counting Cars wasn't your average reality show when it premiered in 2012. It revealed a bygone era where meticulous attention to detail was valued. Unanticipated difficulties, however, came with television success. It wasn't long ago that Danny was in charge of more than simply a handful of hard-working mechanics. Consistent entertainment, predicated on the quality standards that made him famous, was essential to running his business. It was too much for some people to manage. Danny's approach to hiring had always been straightforward. To find the best mechanics, you need to find professionals who are passionate about vehicles, who know that the quality of their work is a reflection of the business as a whole, and who treat each customer's vehicle with the utmost care. This method was effective for a long time. Collaborating on a same goal, the original group was like old buddies reuniting. A change in dynamics, however, occurred when the show's popularity skyrocketed. A new type of employee was drawn to the company by its fame, folks who didn't see the Count's traditions as a way to hone their skills but rather as a way to get famous. Character, loyalty, and the capacity to deal with unexpected renown without losing concentration on the job were among the personal qualities that Danny had to assess. Not long ago, in a string of candid interviews, Danny has started to provide details regarding the staff members that pushed his tolerance to its limits. These aren't your average tales of strife on the job. They deal with trust betrayals that go deep into the essence of Count's Customs. As a name, Joseph Frontier continues to cause Danny's jaw to clench. Frontier, in her role as company bookkeeper, had complete access to Danny's confidence, as well as payroll records, expense accounts, and client payments. Frontier stole over $75,000 from Count's Customs and used the money for his own spending for months. Included the purchase of a Range Rover and the financing of a vacation. According to Danny, The revelation was a particularly crushing point in his career. If you're the boss of a family business, you probably think the accountants are on the same page. Danny recently elaborated, Joe didn't just steal cash, he stole trust. He stole the notion that we could focus on producing fantastic automobiles without looking over our shoulders. The crime wasn't just about money. Frontier had reportedly faked Danny's signature on. He used a variety of paperwork and financial records that he had altered to disguise his tracks. As someone who took pleasure in being honest and forthright, the complex deceit felt like an attack on all of his values. The subsequent legal struggle was just as exhausting. Danny had to demonstrate not just, in addition to the stolen funds, Danny is also suing Frontier and the hiring agency that hired him, claiming the latter failed to adequately screen individuals who would have access to confidential financial data. Of all the things that troubled Danny, even now he still remembers how the theft impacted his entire staff. Suddenly everyone was suspected, he says. We had to put new rules in place, more oversight and other ways of dealing with money, which made everyone feel untrustworthy. Joe's actions spoiled the environment for months. Scott Jones exemplified all that Danny hoped for in a shop manager, meticulous, on time and financially responsible. In the early seasons of Counting Cars, Scott was the realistic foil to Danny's idealistic vision, the calming influence that kept ambitious builds from going over budget. Danny says, he went from being the guy who kept us grounded to being the guy who thought he was the star of the show. Suddenly, Scott began believing his own hype, which made it harder for him to keep himself from spiraling out of control. Scott's transformation as a result of his success was something that Danny struggled to maintain. What's going on between Danny and the situation became even worse behind the scenes as Scott started making unilateral decisions about projects, sometimes even going so far as to confront Danny personally, and Scott became a regular fixture on the show, challenging Danny's decisions in ways that felt more like personal confrontation than professional disagreement, disobeying Danny's explicit orders to the crew. The last straw was during a particularly difficult construction when Scott allegedly went straight to the client to criticize Danny's handling of their project. That's when I knew he had to go, Danny recounts. Down at the store you can have your say. Timelines and budgets are fair game, but you should never put the client's business at risk. Certainly, Scott left in a low-key manner, with the stated reason being that he was relocating to Tennessee. The real reason, according to Danny, was that their working relationship had become toxic. Scott was effective as a manager when he remembered that role, but he began to act more like a partner, which was detrimental to their success. Mike Henry's custom airbrush work was. Danny shows that Mike's ego gradually eclipsed his talent, despite his famed ability to transform commonplace surfaces into incredible art that became the signature of innumerable Counts Customs builds. Mike's wild personality and unusual style made him a cult favorite, recognizes, but he began to think his art was more important than the automobiles we were constructing. He would spend days honing a minor detail while the remainder of the build waited. The issues extended beyond mere time management. Mike started to demand artistic control over. He would argue with Danny over design decisions that had an impact on the overall vision of the project, and eventually, during a high-profile build, he would start communicating with clients directly about changes, sometimes promising work that wasn't possible within the project timeline or budget, in order to appease a famous client. After weeks of painstaking airbrushing and intricate painting that looked breathtaking but totally overpowered the repaired vehicle's classic lines, Mike allegedly went straight to the client to protest what he saw as artistic censorship. Mike failed to remember that his role was to improve the automobile, not control it. The relationship worsened when he started missing deadlines and was chronically late for work. Danny says that she respects artistic vision, but that ultimately they are constructing cars for clients, not art galleries. Filming session. Danny attempted to collaborate with him, realizing that creative personalities sometimes necessitate diverse management styles, but Mike's conduct became more and more erratic. Danny is now more reticent to talk about Shannon Ako in depth, recognizing that Shannon's departure stood out from the others. Shannon, as head of the motorcycle department, had crafted some of the most remarkable two-wheeled works for the shop, and his technical abilities had always been assured. Danny describes Shannon as one of the most innately talented builders he had ever collaborated with. According to Danny, the issue was that Shannon got more and more detached from the rest of the team. He would show up to the set location, but he no longer cared about the program, the deadlines, or even the work itself. Work on his projects alone, and then depart without participating in the team dynamic that had always been key to Counts Custom's success. What was more worrying was Shannon's seeming unease with the television part of the job. Other crew members seemed to love interacting with fans and embracing the cameras, but Shannon appeared to hate the "I tried to work with him," Danny said. I understood that not everyone enjoys being on camera, but he would avoid filming sessions, give minimal responses during interviews, and sometimes just disappear when producers sought to capture his work. It was part of the job to be on the show. We tried to limit his screen time and let him concentrate on building, but he seemed detached from everything. As far as Danny is concerned, Shannon wanted to pursue personal projects free from the constraints of television production, and so did we. In the end, we decided to part ways. The team members Danny needed were totally dedicated to the Counts Customs name. The one who let him down the most was an employee who he won't mention by name, but whom I thought understood what we were working on. This guy was hired when the show was at its most popular and soon became a fan favorite because of his work ethic, sense of humor, and evident devotion to the Counts Customs family. That one hurt the most, Danny confesses, since I really liked him. He appeared to understand the culture, the standards, and the significance of addressing every assignment as if it were your own vehicle. The issue started when this worker began to amass his own social media following, promoting personal projects and business ventures through his Counts Customs connection. While Danny at first encouraged his entrepreneurial spirit, things got dicey when he started trash-talking Counts Customs procedures and policies. He began to publicly shame us on social media as Danny explains, by nitpicking about deadlines, making fun of clients, and without permission posting pictures of unfinished work. In essence, he was using his platform to undermine the company that had given him that platform. The situation became worse when the employee started going after Counts Customs clients for his own side gig, effectively competing with his employer while still working for them. Danny found out about it when a long-term client brought up the idea of hiring his employee for another project. At that point, I knew we were in for a rough ride. The last showdown was a true dilemma. As Danny remembers, it wasn't simply about rivalry, it was also about trust. How can one work for another while attempting to steal their business? Was kept under wraps. However, Danny clarifies that the employee's resignation was not voluntary. Some bridges you can repair, others you have to burn before they burn you. Danny has, in light of these challenging experiences, refined his approach to hiring and leading his team. Modern count practices include stricter regulations, more organized supervision, and a greater awareness of the transformative power of fame on television. I realized that natural ability isn't enough. Danny emphasizes the importance of character above. The experiences also taught Danny the value of open communication regarding expectations and boundaries, as well as the necessity of talent and loyalty above personality. It is possible to train someone to be a better mechanic, but not a better person. Most significantly, Danny learned to trust his gut feelings about people. Counts Customs now has a more comprehensive orientation process that covers not just technical requirements, but also behavioral expectations and the professional values that define the company. Believe people when they show you who they are, he said. I squandered too much time trying to change people who didn't want to be fixed. Danny says Counts Customs has the best core team he's ever had, and despite the disappointments and challenges, they're still going strong. Being a part of a successful TV show comes with both opportunities and responsibilities, and the current crew is aware of both. We're more selective now, Danny says, We take our time getting to know people before we bring them into the family, and we make sure they understand what that family means, and so it goes. Counts is stronger than ever thanks to the lessons learned from prior missteps. The team has improved protocols, set clearer goals, and mastered the art of maintaining quality and integrity while operating in the public eye. Danny's willingness to openly confront this, he has grown as a businessman and a leader through his tough experiences, which have taught him that protecting his team sometimes means being honest about the people who don't belong and that loyalty needs to be earned and reciprocated. Finally, Danny says, "I don't enjoy talking about the people who didn't work out, but he thinks it's important for people to." The story of Counts Customs isn't merely about custom vehicles and television success, it's about the dedication and respect for the people who entrust you with their aspirations that are necessary for establishing something genuine. Danny Koker's incredible journey from garage owner to television personality to seasoned business leader teaches us valuable lessons that go beyond just the automotive world. As Counts Customs keeps changing, Danny stays true to herself and her values, steadfast in his commitment to the principles that led to his success, meticulous craftsmanship, an authentic love for automotive culture, and most importantly, surrounding himself with like-minded individuals who embody his vision for the company. The 5 employees who put him through his paces may have imparted wisdom, but they also strengthened his resolve to the belief that the right people make all the difference. The next time you watch Counting Cars, keep in mind that every finished build is the result of a team of individuals who volunteered to be a part of something greater than themselves. In building that team, knowing when to let go of the wrong people can be the most important aspect.